On Sunday, we were focusing on Judas and Peter and how they failed Jesus. And for that reason, we didn't actually focus very much on the way Jesus was questioned by Annas. And in the text, this is the bit that comes just before Peter's first denial of Jesus and then after it. Then a detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was a father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. A key issue to understand this passage is to realize that high priesthood at the time of Jesus was different from that in the Old Testament. It was no longer the case that the high priest would be a direct descendant of Aaron. Rather, the high priest was a political appointee by the Romans, selected from the priestly families who controlled Jerusalem and controlled the Sanhedrin, the Jewish council. And this could be and also it was no longer necessarily a lifelong appointment. It was for as long as you enjoyed the favour of the Jewish governor, and there are suggestions that sometimes a bit of corruption and bribery was involved in the process. And what we have here is that Annas had been the high priest and was still probably legitimately regarded by many as the true high priest, but now the official high priest was his son-in-law Caiaphas. And so what happens is, in the trial of Jesus, John records when Jesus is taken to Annas' house and is questioned by Annas, he is then, as John points out, taken to Caiaphas' house. And John does not really concern himself what happens when Jesus is at Caiaphas' house. That is focused on more in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. "I have spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said." When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" he demanded. "If I said something wrong," Jesus replied, "testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. In John chapter 12, Jesus finishes his public teaching. From chapter 13 onwards, the focus is more on his private teaching with his disciples. And there, basically, he announces that what he has received from the Father, he has announced to his people, his own to whom he has come to. And the issue is now, how will people respond to the testimony? How will people respond to the truth that Jesus has shared from the Father? Jesus has come to bring salvation. Those who receive his words will be saved. Those who reject them, well, their own rejection will judge them. And this idea continues here when Jesus is before Annas. There's nothing new to say. Jesus has shared what he has received from the Father. He has given witness to the truth publicly in the synagogues, at the temple, where people come together. He did nothing of this in secret. Now it is actually Annas who is on trial, because the question is, how will Annas respond to the truth that Jesus brings? And Annas brings himself under judgment by rejecting this truth and sending Jesus on to Caiaphas.